Hello and welcome to the White Collar Fitness Radio, the ultimate podcast for professionals striving to achieve optimal performance in today's fast-paced age. I'm your host, Bruno Delladoni, online body transformation specialist and founder of the Health Coach Fitness. I'm here to help you optimize your health and fitness, even if you're short on time. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the White Collar Fitness Radio. Today, we're talking about New Year's fitness goals and mindset. So, well, where do we start? Obviously, at this time of year, everybody's thinking about their New Year's resolutions, their fitness goals, new year, new me, all of this stuff. And it's a bit of a joke and a bit of a cliche, but let me tell you, having worked in gyms for about 10 years at this point, it happens every year. Every year, January, people go, and by March, they've dropped off again. So how can we avoid doing that? And how can you actually make this stuff stick this year? And where we start with it is really your why you're doing it. Now, I'm sure you've heard people talking about your why before. There's even a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And there's a couple of different things we can think about here. One, they're your core motivations. So really sit and think about what you're trying to achieve out of your fitness goals and what is driving that need or want to change. So is it improved health? Is it because you feel like you have no energy and really brain foggy all the time and you'd like to have some more energy? You just generally lack self-confidence and, I don't know, for lack of a better word, gravitas. Or you just, I don't know, maybe you've had kids this year and you're looking at being around a bit longer for them. I don't know. What is it that's really driving the need to change? And then we can split your drivers into two different camps, your internal drivers and your external drivers. What do I mean by that? Well, your internal drivers are things like the need to be around longer for your kids. So obviously that is driving you, that need to be around longer for your kids is driving you to be fitter, to be healthier. Maybe you've had a random health scare that you weren't expecting. I suppose that's why it's a health scare. And that's now driving you. Maybe you've just looked yourself in the mirror and thought, do you know what? My lifestyle currently isn't conducive to where I want to go in life. And maybe that's enough, right? So those are internal drivers. They are things that you're feeling that are motivating you. And then you have external drivers. Now, external drivers are things like you've got a holiday coming up. So you want to look your best for that holiday. You've got a wedding. You've got an event. So maybe you've booked yourself a marathon. And that's the external driver for you to go and do some running and get into training. Obviously, the big one these days is high rocks. Maybe you managed to get into high rocks and you want to make sure you're fit enough to not completely make a fool out of yourself at the event. Those are external drivers. They are what I like to think of as dates in the diary. Now, they're great and they can be really, really, really powerful motivators. But a thing to note, a thing to just bear in mind here is that external motivators inevitably, for a short period of time, it's just their nature. You're making a big push towards an event, towards a thing. And then once that thing is done, well, you feel a bit of a loss. So you revert back to previous patterns. So the best way to go about things really is to have a deep understanding of your internal driver, the feelings that are driving you. You could call them your why. And then overlay some external drivers, some dates in your diary as checkpoints. Let me give you an example. If you are a couch to 5K kind of guy, kind of gal, so you're currently at the couch stage and you've booked yourself a marathon. Well, throughout your training process, you're not just going to go from a couch to a marathon without, say, running a half marathon. So in the process, you might book yourself 1 or 2 half marathons along that training period, so you know that you're getting more comfortable and better, and then eventually you do your marathon. Now, all of those are external drivers. Now, say, for example, your goal, your internal driver, is to just have a bit more cardio, be a little bit more cardiovascularly fit. That is a mouthful to say, because maybe you have some family history of cardiovascular disease, heart problems. And the idea is to actually have a bit more cardio, make sure that your tickers is working well, making sure that your lungs can fill up and are doing their job properly, because you know that you have some family history of heart problems and you don't want to have those, and you want to mitigate as much as you can the chances of you having some heart problems. So you're doing some more cardio. So you've booked yourself a marathon, and along the way, you've booked yourself some half marathons. Now, that will get you to a good level of running that you can either maintain or drop off a little bit, but the level of running is now there. You're no longer at the couch stage. Hopefully that makes some sense. Okay, so that's your why. Now, just as I talk here, guys, just take a second and make sure you get yourselves a pen and a paper, if you can, if you're able to, or if not, come back to this episode and do this, because this will help you with your fitness goals for the new year, okay? So the next is obviously setting some realistic and specific goals. Everybody's heard of SMART goals. I'm sure you've done them for work at one point or another. So being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So all those are really important. Be specific. Just saying, I want to have more cardio isn't specific enough, because if you struggle going up one flight of stairs is more cardio. But if you can't do 2, well, still not necessarily good. So make sure you are specific. Now, the specificity of it, anything fitness, anything we ever discuss, there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. And it can be from how much weight you want to lift this year, to how fast you want to run this year, to how many flights of stairs you want to be able to climb without collapsing in a heap this year. It doesn't matter, but just be specific so you have a thing that you can measure your progress against. Okay? Measurable. There you go. You have to be able to measure. So I'm a massive fan of benchmarking things at the start so that you can track. Now, a lot of people listening to this, and a lot of people in general that will pursue these new year, new me type things, a lot of people have weight-based goals. They want to drop some weight. Okay? Take some pictures at the start. It's horrible. No one likes doing it. I understand this. But you kick yourself when you've done the thing if you don't have a comparison, because for yourself, it's really, really important that you are able to see how far you've come. Because just the nature of human beings, we tend to look at the worst and we tend to kick ourselves just because it's fun and we all are slightly masochistic. So being able to physically see the progress you've made is really, really important. Okay? I tell you this, someone that has been doing this for almost 10 years. It's really, really important for your psyche, for you to be able to see the progress. Make sure it's achievable. Now, the achievable part here different schools of thought. I like, personally, for people to set something that's achievable, but outside of their comfort zone. So something that is in fact doable, but it's hard. And the reason for that is that if it's too easy, you're not going to pull your weight, you're not going to pull your finger out, and you're not going to get it done. You're going to find excuses. But if it's hard and you have to get it done, you'll do it. And there is different ways to think about it, but you can always think about this in terms of work. If things don't need doing immediately, you won't do them. Now, if you have a deadline that you're like, oh crap, I've got to pull my finger out, maybe pull some late nights here to be able to finish this thing on time, what do? You do the thing, right? So set it outside of your comfort zone, but make sure it's still doable. If you don't know what is doable, just hit me up on Instagram at Bruno Dalladoni and just let me know, and I'll obviously help you out where I can have a talk through it. Make sure it's relevant. Again, obviously relevant to your goal, relevant to you, relevant to your why. There's no point in you going, I have cardiovascular goals, therefore I'm going to out deadlift Eddie Hall and his 500 kilo deadlift, right? It's just dumb. It's not specific to your goal. It's not specific to what you're trying to do. Equally, if you're like, I want to get jacked and I want to just put on loads of muscle, there's absolutely no point in you going, but I'm also going to run a marathon. Again, that's dumb. So make sure what you're trying to do, your goals are relevant to your why. Everything has got to link back and time bound. Again, this is where those external drivers really come in. If you've got a date in the diary, it spurs you on. It gives you a time frame for you to push. If things are just up in the air, pie in the sky, well, it doesn't work. If things are just in the air, up, pie in the sky, then it doesn't get done. It's Parkinson's law. No, that's not Parkinson's disease. It's Parkinson's law, where you will feel the designated amount of time you have to do a task. If you have to complete a project, a work project in 6 months, you take 6 months to complete it. If you have a week to complete the project, you pull some late nights and you get it done. So again, making sure that things are time bound with a reasonable time frame, small enough that spurs you to action. And if the bigger, broader, longer goal, if you have, say, for example, an external driver, is a long time away, your wedding is not 2 years from now, for example, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Break down that longer, broader goal into smaller bite-sized chunks so that you can have a date in the diary for those things that align with your internal driver, that align with the broader goal. All of these things, like I said, should connect up. Now, one thing here that is very, 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 very important, and I can't emphasize this enough, is don't set 1 trillion goals and do none of them. Focus on one. Maybe, if you're a real high achiever, 2. Because if your attention is split, you'll get nothing done. You don't have 6 hours in the day to go running, to lift weights, to do your meditation, to do your yoga, to maybe do some Pilates, to do a handstand, and maybe if you're feeling particularly inspired that day, also do a backflip. It's just not how any of this works. So make sure you focusing on one thing and you dedicate enough time to that one thing so that you can progress and get good at that one thing. There's no point in you setting, what's your New Year's resolutions this year, Bob? Well, I have 10 of them. Well, sorry, Bob, like we all know what's happening. You're not going to do any of them. So be smart about the whole thing, please, guys. Now, the thing for us to think about here is obviously your mindset. You need to have a growth mindset. And understand that there will be challenges. Like, the whole reason you're setting some new goals this year is because, well, you haven't achieved them already. You're not the person you need to be to have achieved those goals. Otherwise, you would have achieved those goals. Now, I'm not being horrible here. That's just a fact. If you're already doing the things that you need to do to achieve the goals you have, you'd, at the very least, be making inroads towards achieving those goals already. So understand that behavior change, changing the actions you take on a regular basis, your habits, for you to be able to achieve the goals you've set, will be painful. Something has to die for something new to grow. It's just how these things work. So anytime you're having to give up something of yourself, give something that, an old habit, give up a behavior, give up some sort of mindset, anything like that is painful. You're giving up a bit of yourself. It's a sacrifice. But it's a sacrifice to a higher good, because you'll be sacrificing a thing so you can achieve a better thing. I'll give you an example. Maybe you are, I don't know, in your mid to late 20s, you're a guy and you really, really, really enjoy smashing out some video games. Listen, I get it. I do too. But if you then have some fitness goals that need achieving, maybe you have to sacrifice 1 or 2 days of playing video games to your fitness goal. That's going to be painful because, well, you're in the habit of finishing work, getting home, slapping on the Xbox, and Bob's your uncle. But maybe that's just not the case anymore. Maybe you're going to finish work and hit the gym first. And then by the time you get home, it's actually too late for you to play because you've got to sleep to wake up the following day. And guess what? It sucks, but that's what being a productive adult is sacrifice. So understand these things always come at a cost. So just make sure that you're prepared to pay that cost. And Grant Cardone, he's a real estate guy in the United States. He has a saying, pay the price now so you don't have to pay the price later. This is something that me and my wife, we live by, because it turns out it's much easier to pay the price now, to give some stuff up now when you don't have kids or when you're still young enough, than when you're like 75 with loads of arthritic joints and cardiovascular problems and lung problems, and then it's a much tougher sell. So do the thing now so that later on you can reap the rewards a little bit more, as opposed to having to start to do the thing later on when everything is just a little bit harder. And as corny as it sounds, have some positive self-talk, right? So being critical of yourself is important. Like, don't let yourself off the hook. But just in the same flip of the coin, also don't be overcritical of yourself, right? Praise yourself for doing the things you're meant to do. Be proud of yourself for doing that new habit, that new action that you said you would do, that isn't just part of your routine, that it's a new thing you're doing. Well, be proud of yourself for taking that action. But if you don't take that action, be critical of yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I messed up. Yeah, like, positive self-talk is important. Letting yourself off the hook is no good. So just bear that in mind. Next, what we want to do here is break those goals into some actionable steps. So we've already spoken about that. We've already spoken about having some shorter time frames to achieve a bigger time frame, right? That the example we used earlier was the marathon, breaking that down into some half marathons along the way. So this is really important. If you have a long-term goal, break that down into smaller things. Yeah. Set yourself actions for the day that you're going to take. And where a lot of people go wrong is they let the day happen to them. They don't happen to the day. Yeah. So take a second and think through the things you need to do that day. Plan ahead and then follow through with the plan. Yeah, whether that is how many vegetables you're going to eat that day, how many calories you're going to eat that day, if you're going to work out that day or not, how long you're going to work out for, are you following a plan? All of these things. Make sure that you're in the habit of planning your day and then you happen to that day. Yeah, don't just haphazardly let the day happen to you and then you're like, oh no, I haven't achieved things. No, be a boss, be a goddamn daddy and slap that day in the face and make you a bitch. And track your progress. Goes back to the picture at the start. Make sure you're tracking your progress along the way, not just at key points, but make sure you're tracking your progress often. So that if you need to course correct, if you need to double down on things that you're doing. Yeah, make sure you have your plan, your goals, you know them, as in your why, you know why you're doing them, where you want to get to, and then you take the actions and you track the progress, and you take the actions and you track the progress, and if things aren't happening, you course correct, and you take the actions and you track the progress, and if they're still not happening, you course correct again. With my clients, I always say to them at the start, their fitness programs is live. Like the fitness program is live, because if we need to course correct at any point, we can easily do that because we're tracking the progress. Now, if they don't track the progress, we obviously have words and we make sure that things are going how they're meant to, figure out why they're not tracking, or if we need to figure a different way for them to track, whatever it is. But some degree of tracking needs to happen so we know whether we need to course correct, so that you can get the most out of the program so you can achieve the goals you've set. It's important as well, guys, that you let the people around you what you're doing and why. Now, it doesn't have to be in depth, the why for them, but it's important that they have a vague idea of what is happening, because it's no good if you get into the office and you're trying really hard to diet and you get into the office and every other second you've got someone offering you a donut or a yum yum or a biscuit or a croissant or a pain au chocolat or a cheesecake. Like, it's no good. Like, your willpower will only last so long. Maybe that's a few hours, maybe that's a few days, maybe that's a few weeks. But at one point or other, you're going to cave and you're going to stuff your face with things that you probably shouldn't, and then you're going to blow out your calories, and now your diet is you're going to have negative self-talk. These things spiral. Like, one day where things go to shit doesn't really matter, but it's the mindset that goes with it. So make sure you let people know that if they're bringing things into the office, just don't offer them to me. Just don't keep them near me. That's fine. Some people still resist that because it turns out people project their own insecurities onto people, onto you. And that happens. So Janice from accounts will probably be like, but just have one. It doesn't matter. You can have one. The hell do you know? Sit down. So that you're always going to get those people, but just make sure that you let people know so that they can support you. Make sure you surround yourself with people that are on a similar path to you. Now, they don't have to be on the same path as you, but on a similar path to you. Maybe there's a couple of people at work that go to the gym. Maybe you can go to the gym with them. Maybe there's a couple of people at work that go to a run club. Maybe you can do that with them. Maybe you've got some friends that you haven't seen for a while that are on a similar path and you can hook back up. Make sure you set your environment and your surroundings so that it's supportive of the goals you have. So maybe you're planning ahead for the day, and the night before, you set all your gym gear to the side in front of you so that when you wake up, you remember to take it with you. Maybe you have your gym bag ready by the front door, so on your way out, you don't have any excuses and you pick it up and you go. Make sure, guys, you also plan for the common barriers, the common issues, common hurdles that happen. And a big one is time constraints. And the biggest advice I can give you here is have a plan that is realistic for your life. If you can only exercise twice a week for half an hour at a time, that's fine. If you can do more, do more. If you can do less. But set a routine that works for your life. There's no point in you have no time because you've got 3 kids at home, you've got a full-time job, you're commuting in and out of town, and then you go, oh yes, but I'm going to train 6 days a week. No, you're not. That's ridiculous. So make sure you're setting yourself things that are realistic and doable for the lifestyle you have. I've always said throughout this podcast, if you listen to previous episodes, there's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat. So make sure that you're doing the thing that works for you, because it turns out consistency and repetition beats out anything else. If you do the thing consistently for a long time, you get to where you want to go. But if you throw the kitchen sink at it for 1 week and then you do nothing for 6 months, we haven't achieved anything. If you go twice a week for half an hour a go for 6 months, now you're getting somewhere. Yeah? So just make sure that in terms of time constraints, you just do what works for you. That's a big barrier. That's one of the things that people struggle with the most. Yeah. The next thing is, if you haven't been to the gym for a while, or you've never been to a gym, go to a gym with a friend. Yeah. Make sure you go and you talk to some of the staff. Personal trainers especially, they tend to look like they're really scary and maybe they have a face like a slapped ass, but they tend to usually be quite friendly. And if one of them isn't, doesn't matter, someone else will be, right? Think of walking into a gym the same as you would walk into a clothing shop. If you need a hand, you'd ask. Do the same. Because if you don't know what you're doing, it can be very, very intimidating. So ask for help. Personal trainers, we're there to help. That is literally our job. So if you're lucky and you get yourself someone like me, I like talking, I'm very extroverted, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. Yeah. Sometimes you get someone that maybe isn't quite as, I don't know, outgoing, easy to talk to. That happens. But just go to someone else. You'll find someone in the gym that is friendly. Go to some classes. Classes are a great way for you to start if you haven't been for a while, because you've got a little bit of a community feel. You've got a little bit of a almost competition feel to it, and it just breaks the ice. So find the way that you can do, that you can almost stave off the intimidation, that you can keep going. It doesn't matter if you take baby steps, just take the action. And if you stumble, like we said, new habits, new goals, new actions throughout your day, they can be quite painful. They can be really mentally challenging. We'll just stick with it. Yeah, if you stumble the first time and you go to the gym and it's a horrible experience, well, take a second. How many times have you walked into a clothing shop and had a horrible experience? Do you stop going? Probably not. Mind you, with Shing these days, you probably do, but whatever. The point stands, which is, we'll go again. Talk to different people. Go to a class you haven't been to with a different instructor. Find a thing that is going to pull you back into the gym and start creating that, start snowballing that. Yeah. Make sure you are nurturing that consistency. I've said this already, and I can't emphasize this enough. Yeah. You will have setbacks. You will have stumbles. They are part of the process. They're part of that growing mindset, that growth mindset. I say growing because obviously as you go through it, you will be growing. But that growth mindset, it's all part of it. things aren't always plain sailing. And it's really, really important that you have that in mind from the get-go, from the offset. Because if you're expecting things to be easy and cushy, you won't be. And if you go into it with that mindset at the first hurdle, you'll give up. So don't do that, right? Know that things aren't always as easy as you want them to be, but they're there for a reason. They're lessons you can learn, and you just have to keep going. Consistency, consistency, consistency. And there's that famous quote, progress, not perfection. This is so, so important because I don't think I've spoken to a person, that's a lie. Maybe I've spoken to 2 people in 10 years that have truly understood the fact that things just take a bit of time. We all want things to be perfect yesterday. Well, and it's just not the case. Let me give you an example. Come into the gym, it's January, and the whole shtick is you're going to lose some weight this year. Okay? You've realized you're maybe about 10 kilos overweight, and you need to lose some weight. Well, take a second and have a look how long it took you to add those 10 kilos. Was it a week? Was it 2 weeks? Was it a month? Or was it the past 5 years? Now, the high likelihood is that it was in fact the past 5 years. And so I'm not saying it's going to take you 5 years to lose that weight. But what I am saying is that it was consistency. You consistently had a calorie surplus, a little one, albeit, but you consistently were in a calorie surplus for 5 years. That meant that across those 5 years, you added on 10 kilos. So you're going to consistently need to take actions that put you in a calorie deficit for a period of time so that you can lose those 10 kilos. So just be patient and tick a box. Tick a box, make progress. Don't worry about being perfect every single time. There are days you're going to rock up to the gym, you're going to rock up for your workout, and you're not going to want to do it. You're not in the mood, you're tired. Doesn't matter. Get it done. Even if you don't beat any PBs, even if you have to go a little bit lighter on the weights than you used to, or run a little bit slower than you used to, it doesn't matter. Just do the action, just do the thing. Because progress is better than perfection. Yeah? And look beyond January. Like I said, you set yourself some longer term goals. Have your internal drivers. Your internal drivers are very, very, very important. I can't emphasize this enough. If you don't have a deep emotional connection to your goal, maybe you'll achieve it, but you also flake out more often than not. So have a think about why you're doing what you're doing and look beyond January. Have the long-term plan and then reflect and revisit. Maybe as you're progressing through that, things have changed. The goalpost tends to change as you progress. Celebrate the milestones. So every time you set yourself a smaller term target, a shorter term target, and you achieve and you complete it, we'll celebrate that. It's important. And obviously, a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Leverage some expert advice. Maybe you get to a point by yourself and you plateau. Maybe you got the ball rolling, but actually you want to make sure you're not getting hurt. You want to make sure that the plan is a sustainable plan long term. There's always variables that people tend to not think about, recovery being the biggest one. So reach out to an expert. I'm here if you want someone that is a bit more local to you than obviously your local personal trainers. But if you want some expert advice, reach out. I obviously do online coaching. And ask questions. Ask questions from people that you trust, that you feel they are knowledgeable in the area you need help with. That's really, really important because most people are trying to help and most people will do what they can to help. So just as a final thought, guys, remember that there is no real magic to January. There's no real magic to Mondays. Everybody wants to start on a Monday or start in January or start next year. There's no real magic to it. The magic is take the action. Set yourself the goals, follow through. If you stumble, doesn't matter. If you fall off the horse, it doesn't matter. Jump back on, keep going. Yeah. And remember, January, new year, new me, all of these things, they're a mindset. So instead of thinking new year, new me, or New Year's resolutions, or whatever it is, think, I want to be the best version of myself because XYZ internal drivers. To support these internal drivers, I can have a look at XYZ external drivers. I need to take these actions, XYZ, and then follow through with them. Yeah? So let me give you just an example of what I just meant. So I want to be the best version of myself because, in fact, I'll use a personal example. I want to be the best version of myself because my wife and I have just got married and we're going to look at having kids in the near future. So I want to make sure that I can, in fact, run around with my kids and have the stamina to do that. The stamina to stay up late, poor sleep, all these things. So I need to improve my cardiovascular fitness and I need to make sure I am resting enough now before they come. Those are the internal drivers. External drivers. I'm going to sign up to some jiu-jitsu competitions this year because if you haven't done jiu-jitsu, let me tell you, it's pretty damn tough on the old cardio. To support that, I'll probably add in some formal cardio training, whether some running or some cycling, to my training routine. So the external driver is the jiu-jitsu comps. And the daily actions or the weekly actions is adding some formal cardio training. So there'll be either some running or some cycling every week. Now, I'll then break those down further into smart goals for the running. And then it's just a case of following through. So make sure, guys, with your goals, with your things for this year, you do the same. And if you need anything, reach out at Bruno Dalledoni on Instagram and Twitter and x.com, I suppose. Otherwise, have a brilliant new year and I'll catch you guys next time.